The marriage pressure can push you to the light or lead to lots of strife. The choice is yours. The marriage pressure is making Alex and Tess question what they have done with both of their lives. The marriage pressure will split them all apart, but they're making it work for the kids. And Alex will take his marriage pressure to the stage and do the comedy uprooting. As Tess is doing volleyball coaching, but these two just can't stop being close. The marriage pressure can turn coal into diamonds, or it can split people straight apart. Is This Thing On was written and directed by Bradley Cooper, who also has a role with a name that absolutely had me in stitches, and when you find out why, you will understand just clearly how mature of an individual I am. And if you believe that, you're new to the channel, and if so, thank you very much for watching. Also, thank you very much for putting up with my incredibly bad singing. It's a shtick, it's a bit, it's just for fun. Such as Is This Thing On, rather, because Is This Thing On was lavish with a whole bunch of praise on the film festival circuit. It came out in very limited markets and finally got a full-on release just now. And after watching Greenland 2 Migration, that was abysmal. You can find out how abysmal in my review of that. I decided to watch something that, again, has received a lot of praise. And Bradley Cooper is a very capable filmmaker. He's a very capable actor. I loved him in Nightmare Alley. He's been great in a lot of stuff. I'm not saying that he is an A-list talent all the time, but he's very, very good. And we also have writing and starring duties for Will Arnett, the gifted and humorous Will Arnett. He is so goddamn good. This is also written by Mark Chappell, not Chappelle Roan. We don't get any Phenomenon or any Good Luck Babe going on here. By the way, you want to hear me ruin a Chappelle Roan song? Check out the Begonia review. Check out Begonia first and then check out my review. And this is based on the comedy life, apparently, of a man named John Bishop. Him and Will Arnett met. And this kind of was inspired by that. And okay, you can kind of see that once you read up on that. That was on IMDb, by the way. This features Alex, played by Will Arnett, and his wife Tess, the very gifted and uber gorgeous Laura Dern. I love Laura Dern. Loved her since Jurassic Park. She's so good. So good. And that being said, they are having issues with their marriage. They're separated because you got to keep them separated. Hey. Alex is living in an apartment. They're co-parenting. The kids aren't quite sure what's going on. But in all honesty, these two, even though there is stuff bubbling just underneath the surface, I mean, it's not even like, oh, it's way down here. No, it's bubbling right underneath. They're staying together for the kids, or staying at least as honorable as they can for the kids. They also have two friends. Christine, played by Andra Day, who's very, very talented, and Bradley Cooper, who plays the character of Balls. Stop laughing. This is serious. He is named Balls. I am not kidding. Go right now to IMDb. Go to Rotten Tomatoes. Go look at the cast. His name is Balls. Does he go balls to the wall? No, not necessarily. But they are a couple, and let's just say Christine is kind of a little bit, I don't want to say handsy, but she's a little bit too into, like, other people's lives and stuff like that. And also, Balls is an aspiring actor that is kind of struggling and everything. And we find out more about these characters as things go on. After a party, Laura Dern and Will Arnett partake in a weed cookie. And while a bit high and coming down, Alex decides to go to a comedy club. There is a $15 cover charge, or you can put your name on the list. And he starts doing stand-up comedy and actually starts getting to where he is getting kind of good at it. He's interweaving parts of his life and also introducing some scenarios just to have some stand-up comedy fun. He works in finance. We don't ever see him actually work at his job. We do see him in a nice suit a few times, so clearly he likes to wear nice suits. And Tess also used to be a volleyball coach. Put that on hold. Younger Laura Dern in volleyball shorts certainly would have been a sight to see. A good sight to see, that is. Shut up, I will be fine. And, we find out some about that a little bit later on. That's not necessarily a spoiler. But we find out more about these people's lives. And really, this film is, comedy, drama. It's also about marriages, working out for the better or the worse, whatever. And it's also one of the best films of 2026, by far, bar none. I mean, sure, some people, that were able to see this at film festival circuits may have put this on their best of 2025 list. I don't know, or may have recommended it. Since movies like this count as far as being on lists like this for, basically plebs like me, they can't see most films unless they catch special screenings and are very, very lucky to catch it in a particular market before the end of the year. Much like when American Fiction was praised in 2024, but praised in 2025 by a lot of people, this is going to be praised in 2026. And while I don't know, obviously, we are just in the second week of January. If this will end up being on my favorite films of the year list, it's definitely one of the most pleasing. It's not one of the easiest to watch, but it isn't because of the subject matter, but it is because of the characters. Like, you understand these people have flaws, and it really does work out. And actually, this isn't as laugh out loud as American Fiction, but I would argue that there were a few moments in this that sort of had that same beat. I would say American Fiction tackled a lot more stuff, a lot deeper. Jeffrey Wright, I felt, was just a tempo and tremendous, but I feel that stuff dealing with real life situations, dealing with marriage and these strife that people can go through, I think there's a lot to sink your teeth into. I do have to shout out Chloe Radcliffe. She was the character Nina, I believe. She was the one that had the birthmark on her cheek. Just for those that aren't quite sure who she was, I thought she was funny. She only got to do a little bit. Jordan Jensen, I thought, was very nice as a very forward comedian. Never mind, I'm just going to move on from that. But I like both of them. I like the two that play the parents. And there were the two child actors that played the boys were fine. They were fine for what they were. And also, we get a cameo from somebody that I'll talk about in the spoilers, but this just really is a lot of fun, but does have some biting commentary about people needing to admit when marriages, may hit a rough spot, but maybe are going to work out, and maybe sometimes you just need to talk. Communication is key. We're not perfect people. There are marriages that go on the rocks and stuff like that and come back up, and that's the whole thing about finding that unity with somebody. So it is in theaters. You want to check it out right now. I'm going to get into spoilers. Terrific acting, though. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, basically, the cameo is from Peyton Manning. I'm not even kidding. They didn't even have to have a giraffe stand in for him. I kid, of course. Omaha. It's not anywhere near Omaha. It's somewhere near New York, I think. I think it's near New York. Could be in Seattle for all I know based on that traffic, but I think it was New York. The under pressure thing, by the way, is tied into something that the boys are doing, where they are, they're doing something for a talent show and they're learning how to play under pressure. And actually, we get to see that at the end with the kids playing at a talent show, and that's a very nice thing. What I liked about this was just the fact that there were some great scenes in this, but really just Alex getting more into the stand-up comedy and Will Arnett just, sinking his teeth into this role was really, really nice. And Bradley Cooper making himself the butt of jokes was pretty nice. And Bradley Cooper's a capable filmmaker and a pretty good actor. And just him being a character named Balls was just funny. And there was a time where him and Christine's marriage was on the rocks, but eventually it did end up getting worked out. I'm kind of just bopping to like the end about some things and then going a little backwards because there's a nice narrative in this, but really it's about the characters and just about seeing how good they are with their flaws. There's a point where Alex is doing well for himself, getting money from stand-up comedy, but also doing well in finance. While Tessa's trying to pick up the pieces, Christine is encouraging her to get some new dick. I volunteer as tribute. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Laura Dern can do so much better than any pleb like me. But no, I know she's married. At least I assume she's married. I just meant as a character. Who would not want to sleep with Laura Dern? Anyway, let's move on from that. Christine is kind of a little more forward with that stuff. Balls talks about how he wants to possibly leave his wife because their kid's off to college and everything, thinks the marriage needs to end. Now, meanwhile, backing up a little bit, as Alex gets more in tune with the stand-up scene, he gets a little closer to some of the comrades. I thought he was actually going to end up with Chloe Radcliffe for a bit at first, but no, he actually ends up with Jordan Jensen for one night. And she's very, very direct, like, don't let my cat out and don't answer my speaker box, but she beeped him, so whatever, it's fine. But he only slept with her after he had gotten an indication from Bradley Cooper that maybe it's possible that Tess was sleeping with somebody, because he's kind of being a full-on dick about this stuff because he's unhappy with his own marriage, and he is upset because he is trying to achieve his dream of being an actor, but always felt that Alex was the funniest guy in the room. And then there's even a point where his parents find out about his stand-up and tells stories, and his mother says, "Oh, I didn't realize that your life was so sad." And it's so funny. And there's also a point where he buys a new van, and Tess looks very upset. Now, that he takes a picture of her, kind of like, showing this. And then there's another picture of her that shows up in his apartment later that is of her playing volleyball, hitting, a great back shot of Laura Dern. A lot of back shot talk in this on this channel for no reason. Can't show it, though. Can't show it. Would get in a lot of trouble for that. But yeah, get a back shot of Laura Dern, blow up the back shot of Laura Dern so you can, hang on the wall the back shot of Laura Dern. Now that everybody is pissed off at the fact that I said back shot so much, let's move on. It is a picture of her. He hangs it up there. And things are copacetic, essentially, but they can't be together until there is a time where at one of the boys' parties, it's clearly obvious there's feelings. And then the thing from Balls about Tess possibly maybe sleeping with somebody else, but she wasn't. He slept with somebody else because they are separated, so technically it does kind of count. But then he starts to hit a bit of a snag with some of his stand-ups, so somebody is, jumping in and saying certain things. One of his comrades, I believe that was Jordan Jensen, and that was nice. There was some nice stuff here, some nice camaraderie, some good character work. And then we essentially get, we said about halfway through, while Tess is on a coaching, recruitment thing from Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's not actually trying to hit on her. As hilarious as that would be. And Peyton Manning he actually was pretty much a natural doing this, so he was fine. They're at a restaurant, and they're going to go to a club. And it turns out Alex is doing some stand-up there, and does stand-up, and starts weaving in some jokes about things. And he has a joke notebook that his kids ended up seeing a little bit earlier. He has to explain, hey, it's not an angry thing. This is how adults would deal with this stuff. It's just a way to create scenarios, create some stories, use some real-life stuff, but it's nothing personal. And then Tess hears some stuff about, in his stand-up, and is unsure, but then realizes that, he does seem happy here, but isn't too happy that maybe some of the dirty laundry is being aired, especially about stuff, that was kind of considered personal between them. And then they end up kind of having a bit of an argument-ish, and then they end up actually sleeping together because we get angry sex. Angry sex is actually sometimes the best. That being said, that was a lifetime ago. I am way too old for that shit. But, and only 3 days from retirement. Damn. Sorry, Chris, if you happen to be watching this, I had to steal your bit. But they have to hide the fact that they're not they're not sleeping together. They don't want to confuse kids. They don't want to confuse their friends. And this could just be, one last little thing after a breakup. I had that happen a few times, a breakup sex, a number of, bits later. That being said, just in case you guys need that image. But the whole point is that relationships are complicated shit. And everybody deals with them differently. Marriages are a whole different level because there's a lot of, moving parts and how to get separated when your lives are so interlocked. So they end up going to Hudson Bay. That's when Balls drops the thing that he's thinking of leaving his wife. And Christine then ends up actually talking to Alex and basically says, talks to him on the couch. And this is right after he had one night, with Tess and stuff like that. They were in completely separate areas of the house. And she says, you remind me a lot of me, wasting away time and that kind of stuff. And that's what I feel. And some of that stuff's been projected and everything. It's really, really good scene. Andra Day really nailing it here. So I encourage you guys, when you see this, of course, if you are seeing the spoiler section, you have probably seen the movie already. I encourage you guys to focus on that scene just in case you're this far into the movie. But as things are going on, him and Tess basically air out their laundry, so to speak, and how things were a bit of a struggle. There were certain things that were going on. They ended up getting almost in a full-blown argument. She gave up coaching to have a family and stuff like that. Whether he asked her to give that up or not, or she felt she needed to give that up, is subject to debate. He wasn't perfect either. She was distant. He was distant, and there wasn't as much effort in everything, and basically they just drifted apart. That's about the best way to describe that. I'm not saying they're likable people, but I understand how things worked out that way. And then it turned out Christine was actually totally eavesdropping on their conversation and ended up busting through the door accidentally when she leaned against it too much. And then Alex blurts out, "Why don't you try fixing your own marriage?" Rude, but he's not wrong. And there was one line, by the way, that indicated very early on in the movie an exchange between Alex and Tess, where parties going on between all these guys, or they're just a small party between their friends, and Alex chimes in, "Wait, are you talking about me?" And Tess says, "No, someone alive." Okay, rude, not wrong, because of certain things going on. And then basically, kind of pseudo arguments, this kind of stuff. Things aren't maybe working out that great, but they kind of have an argument about the big picture and stuff like that, hanging up, of her and the volleyball stuff, and they have those arguments, that kind of shit going on. And so then they do this part where he leaves after yelling at Christine, goes through the hallway, and they go right into a comedy club. Straight transition, beautifully done. And at first it seems like he's just doing angry stand-up, and nope, he almost melts down on stage. Not like Michael Richards, not like that kind of melting down. Oh boy, that was something. But not like Mel Gibson, not any of that melting down, but basically he didn't realize his dad was there, and his dad basically tells him, "Look, you got to give yourself time to get through this and process all this stuff and everything." Same with, your wife. It's like, it's always been a bumpy road. Me and your mother have been lucky and everything, but not everybody's that lucky, but there's still going to be bumps in the road. And then, essentially, while Tess is having a meeting with her coaching staff, Ball shows up and basically says, "Oh, Christine and I worked this stuff out. So she came with me to Texas while I did the shoot and everything, and things are going good." So Alex gets a bright idea, takes a picture down, and decides he's going to show a picture to Tess of, a moment, in time, but he had to go talk to her. And he said, "Look, when I got the van and everything, look how unhappy you were. It's like, I realized I was unhappy in our marriage. I wasn't unhappy with our marriage. I want to be unhappy with you." If that isn't love, I don't know what is. I don't think that's actually how that works. I don't think that's a big selling point that everybody said it was. But I wouldn't recommend trying to do that to save your marriage. But it worked in this. It worked on me. So it's pretty damn good. And it basically is going to end up working out. It's going to end up working out. Things are going good. He's doing his stand-up. She's going to be doing her coaching. She's going to be part of the LA 2028 thing, I guess. And I guess that's where the Olympics apparently are. And yeah, things work out. Things work out pretty goddamn good. Life ain't perfect, folks. Remember that. Life is fleeting, children. Remember that. So, that being said, I got to give it an A+. I really liked this thing on. I thought it was moving. I thought it was very well done. And it ended up getting more out of me than I expected. So, yeah, A+. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rittland. Until we go on the comedy stage and air our dirty laundry again, happy trails to you.